Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Annalyn Schooley, current president of the Florida Family Therapy Alliance. And despite what you see on my background, it is actually 2026. It's January, and this is our beginning of the legislative season kickoff update information session. I give to you Lauren Baxley and Meredith Neill, the advocacy legislative committee folks for Florida Family Therapy Alliance. Thank you, ladies, for providing this seminar today.
Yes, we are more than happy to do that. So on our agenda, we are going to talk about the general kind of feel of the legislative session for this year, as well as some of the 491 board updates, the bills of interest that we have going, and kind of our agenda, what we're trying to do about it, and how you can help. Meredith, did I miss anything?
No, I think you've got it. I'll be eager to talk about a few of those bills of interest.
Okay, great. So let me go ahead and share. I do have a PowerPoint. Let me get this. Okay, so I'm guessing you all can see. Let me go back to the beginning here. And I will hit that. Can somebody confirm you all see what I want you to see? Okay, awesome. All right, so this is our legislative midterm update. And this slide is, if you attended our last kind of the kickoff meeting that we had in November of this year, the right side may look familiar regarding just general information about how a bill becomes a law. But I wanted to share a bit about the general overview. Meredith, do you want to talk about this? I know you might have a little bit more insight, but I'm happy to chime in too.
Sure. There are some big priorities that the um, combined House and Florida Senate are working with this year. I happened to research some of that this morning, and both of them are very concerned about property tax relief that's been highlighted by the governor. They're hoping that maybe there'll be an amendment that'll come out of that. Public safety, property insurance will be a high priority, and also the topic of artificial intelligence. There have been a lot of complaints about HOAs and their fees and about the high cost of housing. Um, and then, as if you remember from before, Senate President Ben Albritton had wanted to push through a lot of rural services in the last session. He had a term called the Rural Renaissance, and that again, I think, is going to be those issues and funding of taking care of our more rural folks will also be a high priority.
Great. Any questions? I'll try to remember to stop in the middle and ask, but
So these topics are not necessarily pertinent to MFTs, but are the priorities of this particular session generally.
Yes,
Got it.
and that informs also, it does impact us indirectly in that how much time are they going to spend on bills related to mental health and MFTs and parity issues between medical and mental health issues. So if all their time is taken up, if you remember last year, um, the um, Senate President and the House Speaker, Daniel Perez, got in a lot of conflict with each other and with the governor. And the one thing that they had to do last year, which was to pass a budget, they did not get done and had to be done in a special session. So if they eat up all the time doing some things, then other things don't get attention.
Right, right. And of course, things like the taxes and housing and all that directly affects our clients potentially. So even though FFTA may not be ringing in on some of those as private citizens, you might want to ring in on those as you are aware of those things. Okay, thanks.
yeah. Okay, so you can see, right, the session officially just started, but there's been lots of bills filed up until session began. Gosh, it looks like last week it started. But we have a long way to go still to get to March 13th when it ends. So we're sort of just getting started with the committee meetings and as you can see on the right side, how the bill becomes a law, has to go through 3 committee meetings and be read 3 times on both sides, in order to get to the place where we're really close to to a bill and it's considered by the governor. So we have a ways to go in that regard. I wanted to just share this letter. So FFTA put together a letter. I also know that the mental health counselors did it well, and possibly social work, but to urge Governor DeSantis um, to appoint people to the 491 board. At one point, we had 3 of 9 seats filled, which means we had 6 vacancies, which was very problematic because we weren't able to hold quorum or just take care of business on the board as needed. So shortly after we sent this letter, he did announce that he appointed 3 new people to the 491 board and an additional member. So at present, this is just a screenshot of their webpage and the people. There are currently 3 licensed social workers. There's 1 that's duly licensed, Dr. Vicencio. I'm sorry if I mispronounced her name. As an LMFT, 1 LMHC, and then 2 consumer members. So we still have 3 vacant seats, but this is better than it was. And that's kind of a big deal. We've really not had any new appointed members since I can remember. I know that's not too long, but at least 3 years we haven't had any new people, and really had some people fall away or resign, or anyway, we're big.
And Lauren, let me just
Yeah.
let you, because I asked Ashley Irving, the executive director of the board, when they only had 3, could they even do work? And she said, as long as 2 of the 3 were present in the meeting, they could do business. So our board was down to 2 people making the decisions for all of us. So it is heartening that we're at least now up to 6, but yeah, and I don't know that Claudia Vincenzio really identifies as an MFT. So yeah.
Yeah.
It really
Does
feels
anybody
right now
know
that
her?
there's 3 social work. No, I don't.
No.
And we should probably go look her up, find out what she does. But yeah, so right now, anyone who is listening to this, among the 4,200, 4,300 MFTs in the state, if you are interested in being on the board, throw your hat in, for heaven's sakes, because we need to have an MFT who identifies as an MFT on the board.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that would be great. And I'm happy to support helping you do that as well. Just email me, and my information should be somewhere, Dr. Lauren Baxley. But happy to support that application process, show you how to do it and where it is and everything that's needed as well. Great. So that is an update. It's big. I hope to send this out, but this is a link down here at the bottom. It'll show you just the announcement that the governor made when he appointed that.
It is odd that the governor has not really filled all those slots. He is a lame duck this year. And you would hope he would want to stack things or at least get that done. That's not a hard thing, it doesn't seem to me. But I think it's odd that we are still down some members.
I did hear, I can't remember from where, but a source anyway, that it's not uncommon for governors or the person in charge of appointing people to wait towards the end of their term so that they're choosing people that are going to carry over into the next administration to have kind of greater influence. So this is his last term, so it I guess makes sense that at least at this point he's appointed some to our board, and maybe we'll see an influx of that too from him, that he's appointed to other boards as well.
Yeah. Well, I've been licensed since 1993, and this is the first time that, I mean, we've been down we've been down insofar as there are people whose appointments had expired, but they just stayed on and on and on, right? So we've never had this many vacancies. This is startlingly different.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll turn the corner and have a fully staffed board at some point. So that was big news, a big update. So I wanted to just review some of the general board meeting updates. The last general board meeting they had was December 12th. Those meeting notes are still in drafting. They have not publicly posted them, but the audio was available. So with some time, I was able to go through and listen to some of the pertinent topics. And I pulled some of these excerpts from the public book that's available to everybody to kind of look at the materials that were available for that meeting. So some of the new information that are relevant for you is that there was proposed language discussed during that meeting to define the on the premises piece of that statute that we have all talked about for a very long time. So that was discussed. It was ultimately tabled for a formal decision for the next meeting, but, and I'm sorry, it did cut off the bottom. I'll share what that says. That's the draft language that was discussed and proposed during that meeting. So they're hoping, or at least the proposal was to define on the premises to include a licensed mental health professional being present and available to the registered intern via telehealth or other synchronous electronic means, provided that, and that bottom line says something to the effect of provided that there's a telehealth protocol written in place and that the supervisor or the qualified clinician is aware that they are responsible for things at that time. So
So this means that if a registered intern is working for a private practice,
mhm.
that they could do telehealth from home so long as there's a licensed person, or vice versa. If they're in the office doing in-person work, as long as there's a supervisor available electronically,
Mhm.
that they could, so they no longer has to be the both bodies physically in the same space. Wow.
Correct.
And this is in the rule?
This is a
In the rule.
proposed language, right? It is not official. Let me be clear, this
Right.
is not
The
actually
proposed
happening
rule.
yet. It is the
Right.
proposed language in the rule. And so the discussion surrounding that, the reason why it was tabled is because I can't remember who, one of the board members wants to also make a little tweak and adjustment regarding the qualified supervisor duties to make it very clear that the qualified supervisor is ultimately responsible for that, really to build in language that is robust and makes it clear that if you are going to choose to supervise an intern who's doing telehealth from home or something along those lines, right, that the onus of that is upon you and you making that written emergency protocol that's written down and how you're going to address, if you're in session, making sure that you know that you have to exit your session to handle the crisis with your intern online. So they just wanted to make it very clear and be less vague when they approve that. So based on the audio, this is supposed to be on the agenda for additional discussion with new proposed language for the upcoming meeting, which is January 30th. I do have that on the next slide. So we should watch for that, follow it. Once I have not seen this actually come out as official proposed language, like for public comment yet, because the board needs to make a determination about that. But when they do, that will be available for anybody to submit their concerns or thoughts about that before it becomes official.
This bodes very positively for the board extending the ability for qualified supervisors to do all their supervision virtually.
Yes. Yep.
Nice.
It does. So, so that was a big, anyway, I was excited to hear at least they're doing something about it. They're open to doing it. It sounds like it's going to happen. We just need to wait for the formalities to come through. The
Yes.
other piece
and
that was,
all these people who are doing it illegally right now will suddenly come into legality.
yeah, yeah. So the other piece that was updated and it was voted as being adjusted. It hasn't gone through I don't, what's the thing I'm thinking of, the FAR or the register. It hasn't gone through that process yet. I just checked for formality there, but they're just adjusting the conflict of interest and supervision. You can see the specific changes that they are making to include current or, can't supervision provided by the applicant's current or former therapist qualifies as a conflict of interest. I would hope that was clear. Current or former spouse, current or former employees. So they just kind of expanded that and made it very clear who would qualify as being a conflict of interest for supervision. And then they are also updating the requirement for qualified supervisors to submit the required form within 7 days. So they added, I did not screenshot that, but they added language in there to require submission of that within 7 days and to respond to any follow-up board inquiries within 7 days. They shared just some struggles and frustration, I'll say, because they were having trouble getting a hold of qualified supervisors to answer their questions when they were trying to confirm, the registered interns application, et cetera. Okay, questions, thoughts? Okay, the next 491 board meeting is next Friday, January 30th, and it is available via telephone conference. Now, I cannot for the life of me figure out why you can do some via teleconference and others are not, but this one is. So anybody can listen via the conference. The information is here. I put the website as well for you to find that. That meeting link is not going to work. It's just a screenshot, but you should be able to find all the access that you need at that time. Okay, and this is also a duplicate slide from our last presentation, but just I think a general outline of the difference between laws and rules. The rules are governed and developed by our 491 board, right? And essentially those are how the laws developed by the Florida legislature, how those laws are interpreted, right? The board is in charge of creating rules and language to execute what is written in law. And that's helpful so that we know where we want to target and advocate for adjustments and change, right? So it's important to know, do I need to talk to legislators about this concern, or is this really in rule, and do I need to talk to my 491 board? Okay, so on to current bills of interest. Meredith, I don't know which ones you wanted to talk about, but we can kind of go through.
Yeah, I've picked 4 of them that I think are much more relevant to us or to our clinical populations. And the ones that I picked, I will, on this first page that you see, you will see that there is a Senate bill and also a House bill. Having a companion bill means that the proposed legislation would be in both houses, and it has a better chance of moving forward. On the second slide, which we'll look at in a little bit, you will see that some of them do not even have companion bills. So they may not go anywhere. And so for that reason, I've chosen to focus on some of these because I think they have more direct impact on us.
Great.
Lauren, anything you want to add before I sort of jump into one of these?
Nope, you jump in and then I'll do the others.
Okay. Just as a quick reminders, the speaker again this year is Daniel Perez. He is a Republican out of District 116 out of Miami. He's an attorney. He is an FSU grad. He's Roman Catholic. And he has been in the House since 2017. The Senate President, Ben Albritton, was formerly in the House from 2010 to 2018, and then moved into the Senate in 2018. He's out of Lakeland, originally was a citrus grower, and Albritton and Perez have had some conflict, and also conflict, as you remember last year, with the governor, especially around the Lake Okeechobee controversy that ended up being vetoed by the governor. This had to do with prioritizing water out of Lake Okeechobee to sugarcane growers over the ecosystem. So that's a little bit of some of the history behind the powers that be. Let's take a look at that first bill, Senate Bill 768, which is entitled Marriage and Family Therapist Licensure by Endorsement. This is a bill that has been brought to Florida by AAMFT, which is the national body. We were not consulted at all about this bill being introduced. It is being sponsored by a woman, Republican Tiffany Esposito out of Fort Myers. And I guess was brought to Florida by a different lobbyist that I don't know. I think a woman named Anita Berry. And I believe, Lauren, that you and Anna Lynn had some conversation prior to today with Roger Smith, I think, at AAMFT about this bill because we were completely blindsided by this. It's promoting marriage and family licensure by endorsement. And it is the effort would be to require the 491 board to issue licenses to applicants who are moving into Florida from other jurisdictions and who don't have any disciplinary proceedings. I think this is in the direction of maybe one helping out the need for more mental health licensed personnel in Florida and more professionals. But I'm not sure if there's anything that you all would want to add out of your conversation with AAMFT, but the upsetting part is that we were completely blindsided by this. They didn't talk to us again at all about this. And so I don't know if there's anything you all want to add about that.
Well, I don't know about adding, but yes, we were not consulted or aware. We knew AMFT, if you are a member of, the national organization, or have been very open and public about their desire to work on portability. And so this bill is their effort towards portability. And so although we weren't consulted specifically about this bill, and as representing the interests of this, state level Florida MFTs, it would have been helpful to be able to be aware of the language and maybe provide some input on the way it's written. Nonetheless, this is their effort towards that. And so at present, we're working to understand kind of the difference between this proposed bill and the current Mobile Act that is in place, right? One of the things that is different in the language is that the Mobile Act requires that you have been practicing your profession for 2 out of the last 4 years, right? And the Mobile Act does apply to all licensees in 456. So this is beyond just mental health professionals. It includes nurses and podiatrists and everybody that's under 456. So the Mobile Act requires that you've been practicing 2 of the last 4 years and that you've taken the national exam. And that you have a background check and fingerprinting and a few other things. And so the marriage and family, this endorsement bill that AMFT submitted is very just general. They're looking for direct licensure by endorsement. If you have a license, you get a license is basically the language. That there's no requirement about having practiced for 2 of the last 4 years. And passing the national exam is not listed there. And so we are currently working to find out from the 491 board how that 2 of the last 4 years is interpreted. And so we're waiting to get confirmation of that because I do think that will influence our position, right? And it's really not a position of, is this a good or a bad bill? I don't know that it's a bad bill for Florida MFTs, but I also don't know that it's been a good use of effort and funds if it's not going to create great change, I guess, for MFTs.
Doesn't the mobile bill just restrict the therapist to see people online, that they can't see them in person?
That's a different thing. That's the telemental health license.
Yeah.
Right. And the telemental health license is in effect a license without having to have 2 years of experience or any of that kind of stuff. It's the telemental health license is almost the exact same language as 768, which is if you have a license, you get to be a telemental health and you can even live in the state of Florida and work telehealth So the only reason to get a full Florida license is if you want to see clients in Florida face to face. So I don't really see that there's enough difference, as you're saying, Lauren. And I think actually there's a potential damage in our relationship with our sister organizations, because it's only for MFTs. It's not for social work and mental health counselors. And so by leaving them out of this bill, I think creates bad blood. If we had been consulted, we might have said, let's add all three, because if the mental health and social workers want to do something for them and leave us out because of this, I think that's a long-term bad thing to precedents to set.
But aren't they already with the compacts or the SIPAC?
Well, the compacts are not up and running yet. They've been approved, but they're not up and running yet. And right now, both of our sister professions can come in under the telemental health. Telemental health is for all three of us.
So yeah, I would agree in that it would have been helpful to at least connect with the other two disciplines to determine if they would have wished to be part of it. Given that I know social work is pursuing a compact, mental health has one, although it's not up and running. I don't know what they would have said, right? If that would have been good or bad for them, but I do think preserving those relationships is important, especially as being the smaller organization. We really want to increase the relationships and make sure that we're all working together where we can, and showing good grace in that way.
I have one other question. So piggybacking on what you just said, Annalyn, so any MFT in Florida could apply to be through the teletherapy and get licensed as an LMHC?
No,
Become dual licensed in
no. It's license to license. So it's any LMFT in any other state but Florida could come and get the telemental health license to work with Florida citizens. And if you take a quick look, if you pull that list, the vast majority of them are Californians, because they don't have to take the national exam to do this. Whereas the Mobile Act requires that they take the national exam. The bill that AMFT is proposing would let Californians be fully licensed without taking the national exam. And interestingly, rumor continues to fly that California is going to accept the national exam and do away with their own exam. At least that's what I understand. Hasn't happened yet, though. So this is not just politics for Florida. This is across disciplines. It's our relationships with other states, and it's even our relationships with the accrediting bodies, because other licenses can come in who are not graduates of COAMFT programs, and even around the exam. So it's multi-layered. It looks simple, but it's not.
Also, on the Senate side, this has been also co-sponsored by Daryl Rowson, who is part of Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. He's the vice chair of appropriations, and he also serves on one of the committees that is most important for us to be familiar with, which is Children, Families, and Elder Affairs. So he's got a lot of power on the Senate side. So that was an interesting choice that they made to co-sponsor this bill.
Yeah. Well, and all of that to say, right, so as FFTA, we are working to working to figure out how this is different than the Mobile Act. Is it different than the Mobile Act in what ways? And then kind of go from there. But that is there. There are both bills. They've been referred to committee, but that's all that's happened so far. So we'll kind of watch and see. Meredith, what was next on your list?
The next one I wanted to talk about was Senate Bill 344, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. This is the bill about AI in being used in psychological, clinical, counseling, and therapy services. This was introduced on the 13th and on the beginning of the session. It is written to prohibit its use in these fields that are listed in the title of the bill. And as you can see, we have some concern about the unintended consequences of this bill in particular. It is going to the Health Policy Committee on Monday. That is chaired by Colleen Burton out of Winter Haven, and the vice chair is Gail Harrell, who is the former chair of that committee of Children, Family, and Elder Affairs, I believe. So we've had some contact with her in the past. The bill, if it prohibits the use, I mean, we all know that AI is here to stay. It's not going away, and it's already being used in ways in which we're not entirely familiar. The upside of using that would be that you can use AI in your work. I mean, we're already doing that in some ways if we're doing generating images or brainstorming or proofreading, doing data analysis. It can generate homework assignments for our clients, that sort of stuff. So it can be very useful, but it is prone to make mistakes. It doesn't understand context very well. Also, it's not very good for the environment because it takes up an enormous amount of energy to run. It would never. It might supplement your clinical judgment, but it would never supplant your clinical judgment. It could be leveraged in certain purposes, for certain purposes, might be helpful in training scenarios, that sort of stuff. So we have some questions. Just to prohibit it outright does raise some questions. Anything you want to contribute about that bill in particular? It is companioned in the House and the Senate, and we'll see where it goes. Any discussion about that?
Do we understand what supplementary support means?
That's a great question.
Uh-huh.
No, it's not. It is not defined in the language itself, right? That would probably come later. Perhaps there would be a rule developed to identify what that really means. And maybe, what time is it? Maybe it would be helpful. I do have that one up on my screen. Let me see if I can do that real quick and show you. I think that I don't want to speak for all mental health providers, but I do think that, let me see if this is it. That's the endorsement bill. Nope, this one. Okay, let me zoom in here. Okay. So, is that big enough? Can you all kind of read it?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So as used in this section, the term artificial intelligence means blah, 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 except as otherwise provided, a licensee, a registered intern, may use artificial intelligence to assist in administrative or supplementary support. They include, but are not limited to, right? So these are the things that are included: managing appointments, scheduling reminders, drafting general communications related to therapy, processing, preparing, analyzing. It talks about recording or transcribing a counseling or therapy session if a licensee obtains written informed consent at least 24 hours before the provision of services. My concern would be, what about crisis work? What about our crisis units? Of course, they're not going to get written informed consent 24 hours before services. That does not make sense. And so that would be just a tiny adjustment to make. But I think the overall gist is that, of course, we don't want AI to overtake clinical judgment, and diagnosing completely. That is a huge concern among many people. But I do think with technology and AI, we don't know what's coming. And to have a bill that is only targeting mental health professionals, it does include 490, right? So psychology is in this bill. It has the exact same language for psychology and 491 licensees. To write it into statute, and we all know how hard it is to change it once it's there, to have these major limitations like this is just kind of concern. We don't know what's to come. We don't know how we're going to compete with other disciplines, what other disciplines will become licensed in the state of Florida, and this won't apply to them. What other certificates might people, there's just too much unknown to have it written in this manner. And I think there should be, our opinion, I think, and that of some of the other disciplines I've spoken with, is that to shift the way it's written to include, I guess, to be a little bit more inclusive and less boxed in, to indicate how it can be used, but make sure to just not limit it. What about those who use, VR for treatment, or some of the applications for CBT that go alongside our therapy? I think clinicians are using AI already in a way that's clinically and therapeutically beneficial, without replacing their clinical judgment, right? But those things may not be allowed moving forward, and that could really stunt our growth as a profession. It is specific to Florida. I think there's only one other state that has an AI bill like this. And at this time, it's the only bill in the state of Florida that's like this, and it's targeting mental health provision of services, not necessarily others, right? And I know that there's AI services that could be used like in podiatry, right? You stand on a board, AI analyzes the shape of your foot, recommends certain things. So I just don't love that it's just for mental health, and that it's written to really be prohibitive to a future that we don't know of yet.
Do we
Well,
know?
I would guess this is a reaction to chatbots
Yes.
doing therapy. But if people seek that out without using a therapist, how are they going to stop that? So it stops us from abdicating our work to a chatbot, but I don't think it stops the use of chatbots by citizens. So yeah. Whoa.
Well,
Do
and
we-
that's complex. Go ahead, Meredith.
Do we know if there's anybody who is a mental health professional who is speaking to legislators about this? I know one person, Aaron Norton, out of USF, is addressing this in some ways, but I don't know of anybody else who is addressing legislators about that. And that's because he has some background in researching this, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I'm not familiar with anybody that's specifically talking to legislators about it, but I do think that we can make a shared effort. It hasn't moved yet, and so in talking with the other professions, and I do, social work did put this forward. So social work is the one who headed this bill, and they have a white paper published on their website about it. And so we have been trying to work with them to discuss some of the concerns we have with the way it's written, right? It's not the intent of the bill. That's clearly a good thing. I think most people would agree. It's just the way in which that it's written and could be executed and limiting for our future.
So I think I'm like personally invested in this kind of a thing to an extent because my dissertation is actually on the use of AI and VR towards a training for counselors in training. And we are like the one profession so far that really, where it could be beneficial, that isn't using it. So, it's being used in the military, it's being used in the medical field, it's being used by teachers, but not by us for just the purposes of counselors and training. So that's why I'm asking like some clarification among the supplementary support. It's not, doesn't really seem to fit in any of the categories that have been mentioned in that other, thing that you showed. So I don't know. I don't know if there's obviously this, if I'm not able to write my dissertation because this is illegal, that might be a problem, but I don't know how I would become involved with helping, you know what I mean? To see definition or something.
Well, I'm happy to help you get connected. I think that one of the other organizations has attempted to develop a little task force of mental health providers who are interested or are already familiar with some of the research on AI, how it is being used in a positive way, so that when we approach legislators, we have a legitimate research-backed argument as to why the language should be tweaked to allow for accommodations in certain ways and things for the future. So if that's something you're interested in getting involved with, please connect with me. I'm happy to put you in touch with those folks.
Great. Okay. Thank
Be careful you don't get deported.
you. Goodness.
Quit
Where are they
being
gonna
in the
send me?
sun, Lynn. Stop being in the sun.
Right.
I would like to hear about the parental rights one, particularly the 13-year-olds not being able to seek. Not that that ever was anything that I dealt with, but anybody who works in a school environment, this could be problematic.
Yes, this is a bill that is supposed to repeal a provision that relates to minors' access to outpatient crisis intervention services. It is requiring also that school districts provide parents information before the district begins to administer questionnaires or certain forms. And I looked up to see about the sponsorship of this. It was introduced by Representative Kendall, Brackett, and Miller. And I looked at Kendall's reason for deciding he was going to sponsor this. And he's written, because currently children as young as 12 can restrict their parents from accessing their medical records, and they would have the ability to get treatment. Secondly, because the school districts put out surveys about gender identity, political beliefs, and religious beliefs, and now they want parents to have consent about whether the kids get those surveys or questionnaires. And thirdly, he writes that this is about biofeedback being used for disciplinary reasons without parents knowing, and the parents would have to opt in for their kids to be however they do discipline with biofeedback. I imagine they just ask them to listen to certain things and calm down, but I don't know that.
I hope it's not shock treatment.
But those are his reasons for deciding to sponsor this bill. So, it is a companion, so you see that it has House and Senate sponsorship.
But if a child wants to do this, if a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old wants to get treatment for drugs or mental health, and the parents think that that is going to shame their image, they don't want anyone to know that the child has a drug or transgender problem or whatever, that limits the child from getting help because of the egos involved with the parents. That's what jumps out at me in this bill.
Yeah, I can imagine a scenario where a kid says, I don't want to use weed anymore, but I get it from my dad.
Another scenario, absolutely.
And
Do we have any data on any of the minors who don't have consent, who have sought crisis treatment?
not that I know of. I'm not sure where all that's coming from at this point, but again, it is big, strong on parental rights and not rights of children and minors.
This also strikes me as something that can prevent children from reporting incest situations. And that to me is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Because as an
Well,
expert witness, I get a
yes
lot
and
of these
no.
cases.
Yes and no. If a child reports this to a teacher, they have to call in the abuse report.
But a lot of
Um,
teachers do not do that.
Mm.
Well, that's poor management on the school's part. So,
Absolutely.
you know,
At their
as we,
peril.
you know, we can't, you know, one of the challenges is that we're just one piece of a very large system. So if Linda, you were concerned about that, then you might want to, you know, we might get together a bunch of people who will create trainings for teachers. So if this were to go forward, perhaps we need to up our training of teachers regarding the reporting of abuse and things like that. But certainly
Annalyn,
schools are
there
going
is
to
so
have to
much
do better.
There is so much corruption that I have encountered in the judicial system, in the school system, etc., where people
Well,
cover this
all
up.
we can do is hold the line as best we can, Linda. That's all we can
I
do.
understand that.
Any
I
one of us.
understand that.
So,
I
but
understand.
and on the one hand, this does kind of pit parental rights against children's rights, and that's difficult.
Mm.
Yes. But I loved your question, Robin, about what is the research out there? Do we have even just anecdotal information of 13-plus-year-olds who wanted to get services, were denied by their parents, and something bad happened, like suicide?
Or
So
that they have, without consent, that they have gotten help.
that they sought help and that was a negative outcome, right? So either way, I don't know if there's any literature or even anecdotal information that would support even the need for this kind of thing. So
I was
it's
thinking
tough.
about the anecdotal information that would, counter the need for this.
Yeah. Yes. Lauren, I noticed we're running out of
Yeah.
time. I don't think we necessarily need to hear about the social work compact.
No,
What's most important for us to know about
So-
the nurses?
just that they are, that's moving forward quickly. They are seeking to be able to practice autonomously without physician oversight. This is likely related, moving so quickly as well because it will increase access to care in rural areas, which is one of the big topics and goals of the session. There's a related bill that will also allow prescribing authority without physician supervision. And so for us, this is also helpful because, well, if you're working, you know that clients often have difficulty getting their medications or seeing a psychiatric nurse, practitioner in a reasonable amount of time. So I do think that this will be helpful for our clients who need greater and more quick access to psychiatric support and providers. This is just a list of some other bills that we are tracking. The step therapy protocols has been filed multiple years in a row. There is no companion bill. It's just sitting there for now, but it's no different than the language in prior sessions. There's a mental health programs for gun violence. That's designating funding to provide gun violence prevention programs. Specifically, they've named UF as the owner of that funding and programming. It's helpful to know MFTs are included as eligible providers for that program when it gets up and running.
It's a pilot program.
Yes. And then the top right, determination of mental conditions in judicial proceedings. That's one that we are working on at this time. If you aren't aware, last session, statute 916.115 was changed. It had just a tiny change, but what it did is that it struck the ability of all 491 licensees to provide forensic evaluations with the courts. And so that happened last year. It flew under the radar of everybody because the statute 491 wasn't actually in it, but there was little 3 words that were struck. So this bill does have a modification to that same statute. However, they've built in some provisions for LCSW and LMHCs to provide forensic evaluations in some specific circumstances. It's not completely, there's some limitations there, but most importantly, MFTs are excluded. We are not included in that bill, so FFT is working to become amended into that. If you're listening, or any of you, if you know of any MFTs who were providing or are, they shouldn't be now because they're not eligible, but who were providing forensic evaluations in the courts and were impacted by this change, we really need to hear from them. That is going to help provide evidence to the legislators as to why we need to be amended into this bill. And most importantly, we want to maintain parity. It's never a good thing to see legislation pass or go through or even filed where only two of the three professions within that are included. And so, anyway, that's that. We're working on it. Please let me know. Oops, sorry. If you know anybody. And then the last one I do think is relevant is this risk protection orders. There is no companion bill, but it removes the ability for law enforcement to petition for a risk protection order. If you don't know what that means, a risk protection order means that they can petition the court to have firearms, ammunition, and weapons removed from the home if or removed from somebody's possession if they are at risk to themselves or others. And so this anyway, it's struck from the entire bill, so it really limits law enforcement's ability to take and hold firearms from individuals who are at risk to themselves or others. There's a little circumstance where they can take firearms, but it's not a risk protection order. It has to be like an immediate threat. But anyway, so you should just know that that is there, but there is no companion bill, so I don't know where it'll go. And I know we ran out of time for today, but we have talked at every event about how to contact your legislators. If there's an issue, certainly on the bills that we are tracking, or even if not, please connect with me or Meredith. We're happy to work with you and have you be much more engaged and on our team to work with legislators in an I don't know, targeted way, but we hope to send out grassroots messaging to you all to help you connect with your legislators. And maybe I'll do like a screen recording walkthrough as well. I can send out along with this since we ran out of time on how to do that on your behalf. And
Can you send the link out?
for the recording,
Yeah.
yes, I think we're planning to do that.
Okay.
And then join us, right? I think many of you, if not all of you, are members, but we need more members, right? This FFTA is the only state level association advocating for state MFT issues. We are it, right? And so we need people to know that. I don't think that MFTs in Florida realize that. We need people to know, we need people to join, because this is the organization that's going to protect and watch out for the MFT license in the state of Florida. So here's the information. It's not that much. If you go out for a nice meal with a partner, it's probably close to $100 nowadays with tip. So one meal out, and instead you could give it to us, become a member, get great CEUs, and also protect and grow your license and make it valuable in the state. Thank you.
Thanks for the great plug.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Excellent.